What's up, running fans, jumping fans, stowing fans, all around athletics fans? Welcome to Talking in Ovals. I'm Alex Cuesta. What's going on? To my co-host, the man that everyone comes to hear because they don't want to hear me talk. What's up, Hyatt? How's it going?
Not much. Just can't believe that I'm actually rooting for Tom Brady tonight, but, that's what you do
Bucks.
as a Giant fan.
That's disappointing because Tom Brady deserves nothing. Anyway, on this beautiful Monday, January 16th of 2023, there's no snow right now, so it's beautiful. That's when we are recording. Before we get into any of the fun stuff, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials. Go search Talking in Ovals. You'll see the logo. You can't miss it. Giant track, giant letters. Can't miss it at all. Before we jump into anything, I want to say last week's show, we had a great show. Please go back and give it a listen. We had Steve Slattery on. He's a New Jersey track legend, 2003 USA Outdoors champion steeplechase. And we had a fantastic conversation with him. It went all sorts of places. Right before we were about to get off, we talked for another 20 minutes. It was just one of those shows. It was good. So go back, give it a listen, and send Steve your love. This week, though, we have a few PRs. Hyatt, what do we got?
Well, we got two that Chris Tefelsky from Westfield sent to us. It's a hard week because it's the state relay, so it's harder to get the PRs, for relay meets. But we have Joe Piero ran 51.6 in the 400, and Noah Petrassi ran 53.4 in the 4, and that's at the Bubble in Toms River State Relay. So great job, guys.
Yeah, good job. 51.6 this early in the season, especially in the bubble. That's cruising. So congrats to them. That's good. So everyone, please continue to send us your PRs. I don't care if we have a laundry list like we did last week or just a few like we did this week. You all deserve the shout outs. So keep sending them to us. This week, we have a guest. We have another great guest coming on. He's another one of the Toms River South Parade from Hyatt in his glory days. And honestly, I'm grateful because so far, all of them have been great guests. I don't think this one's going to disappoint. He's Eddie Baines. He's a former New Jersey athlete over at Toms River South and also a coach. What's going on, Coach?
Hey, how are you?
Living the dream over here, having some fun, talking some track. So we like to get everybody going with this show the same way. I don't know if you listen to some of the episodes, but we always like to let you guys start off. What made you like running? What made you start? What made you sit there and go, hey, this is pretty cool?
I guess it depends on who you ask when I started. I mean, when we were kids, I grew up, my dad worked as a contractor for the Navy. So we, started moving around a lot when we were kids. And we wound up in Southern California, and in kindergarten, they had this thing called the Jogathon. And it was a fundraiser where you did laps around the playground. And so, I was like, all right, well, if that's what we're supposed to do, that's what I'm going to do. So they started, and it was a fundraiser, and it was like, get your family to sponsor you. So we started doing laps, and my mom was like room mom, and she was, hey, you can stop anytime you want. And I was like, no, I'm good. This is kind of fun. And just kept doing. So I think second place was like 23 laps, and I did I think 62.
Oh my God.
Nice.
So yeah, and my grandmother sponsored me at $1 a lap, so she was pissed. But I mean, so like that would be, if you ask my mom, that would probably be when she said. But then we came back to Jersey, and I was trying to figure out who I was. So my dad wrestled in middle school, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna join the wrestling team, but I'll do cross country to get in shape for wrestling in the fall of 7th grade, and I was terrible. The girls used to say that I was, they had their sweats on and they were on the bus, and I was still finishing. Like it was just, I was that 4'6", 75-pound kid that just, ran in sweatpants his first time because the shorts were too short, and I just I was like, I don't think this is for me. So so yeah, I did that. I did wrestling, and then I tried out for the baseball team, and I actually I got cut. I didn't quite make the middle school baseball team, but there's 700 kids in each middle school in Toms River. Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, I'll try track. And again, same thing, not very good, but I started to like the camaraderie. I started to like the relationships that that you start forming through track. So the next year I was like, all right, I'll do the same thing, and hopefully this year I make the team. So cross country, I must have grown 6 inches. I finally, hit my sprout and went from like 87th in Ocean County to 4th. Wow. And it was just like one of those, oh, okay, this is pretty cool when you're up front, and that's
what everyone says.
Yeah. So yeah, it's always fun when you're winning. It's always easier when you're winning. Absolutely. So yeah, I just I was like, all right, this is great. So then it all switched. I did wrestling, but now I was doing wrestling to stay in shape for track. It wasn't the other way around anymore. It was, then it was that's kind of where I would say that I kind of bought in, and I was kind of hooked to it. So yeah, and I went up to the baseball coaches and said, hey, listen, I'm not going to come out for baseball. And we're cool. We're still cool to this day. I wound up working with one of them. He was a guidance counselor at the high school. And one of them was my father-in-law. So
did you do Little League throughout? Like, were you someone that was kind of known and was expected to be eventually a player, like known in the area-ish, like to your little group, like, oh, eventually we're going to get Baines to come. He'll be on the team. Like, is that something where they expected you to just keep trying and come make it eventually?
I think so, but it wasn't, that I was very good. It's just, we grew up kind of, I would say that a word you could say about, Hyatt could probably attest to this is how stubborn I am. So, I probably,
that's for damn sure.
Yeah, it was probably more that I wanted to be, I wanted to make it because like I wanted to make it. Like that's, and everybody who we grew up with knew that like, there was no quit. Like you tried until, they basically said, listen, you're done. Don't try to do this anymore. It's not going to work.
So you're done there. Now you're fully bought into track. What were some of your favorite times, like middle school? Obviously going from 86 to 4th, that has to be like an aha. This is great, right? And then from there, what have been some of your favorite memories? Recount like your best memories going through the rest of middle school and high school, college, coaching. Take us through the whole thing and we'll jump in if we want to.
Yeah. I mean, middle school, like, I guess, it was, 4th during cross countries, 2nd in the county mile. And, just like, all right, I've bought into this, and like, I'm starting to see that like, there's, you're not on the soccer field, you're not on the baseball field, you're not hiding behind other people. It's just you, and it's the work that you put in. And, the one thing that, the thing that my parents always instilled in us is, if you work hard, you're like, so that was from the start. It's, I can control the output here because I can control how much work I put into this.
Yeah, there's no politics in track at all. None of those right. Team politics in track.
Yeah, which is, I mean, and again, I could talk to you about this, which sometimes I think that was what was great about my drive in high school, but it was probably also part of my downfall in high school, why I kept getting hurt, because, I had to work as hard as I thought I needed to work to be the best I could be, which, it took me until I got to college to find the balance, that, it is, you need to have it in your lifestyle, but it doesn't have to be your life.
There definitely was not many easy runs for Eddie Baines.
No long soul distance, no LSD.
Well, there was supposed to be, but he like you said, he had that drive because I was there as a volunteer coach when he was in high school, so I got to witness his whole high school career, and it was so fun. I think I got just as much joy as he did from his races, which we can get into, but like placing at the states, winning counties. It was definitely a great journey from my perspective, because like we were like this huge family there at South for all these years, and it was just really, really cool to watch him as he kept on progressing.
Coach Dave, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you were coached by Hyatt. I was coached by Hyatt for a year and change. I think it was about 2 years. You were there with me, and he got to experience the fun parts of me having success, getting injured. So I feel like he had like, Hyatt, is it you? Were you the one that cursed us with all the success and injuries? Is it a Hyatt thing?
God, I hope not.
So keep on recounting. So you're through middle school, you get into high school. What's it like now stepping up into high school? Because obviously, it's interesting. I didn't do middle school track. I did 1 year in sixth grade. Then I moved to a borough in our town in Lakehurst over there in Manchester that didn't have track. They didn't let me go back to Manchester and run, even though I wanted to. So I didn't do track for 2 years. So I didn't have like a lot of the similar experiences like you guys had, where run in middle school, get to high school, and this is real training type of deal, right? I just kind of was naive, jump in and let me just go run like an idiot. So what was that like, kind of jumping into high school? And now you're already good, but here's real training. Here's a lot of talent in South. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, that was, I guess the biggest thing was, in intermediate school, you're one of 200 kids on the team. It's tough to keep tabs on people. And then you throw 40 guys on the line, and all of a sudden, like, the top three finish, and you're like, oh, you guys are good. We gotta do more with you. And
chaos.
Yeah. So, I mean, and if you're on the front end of that chaos, they know your name, but if you're on the back end, it's like, oh yeah, thanks for coming. Here's your pizza party. So it was great. Stepping up, I think, and I'm sure if you've had, a lot of South guys on here before, I'm sure, in talking about O'Leary, he did it the right way. And what I mean by that was, when we were training, it was, you're gonna train with, as a freshman, you're gonna train with the freshmen. You're going to, every so often you can go on a run with the older guys, but you're going to train with the freshmen. You're going to run freshman races. We're not going to throw you in every varsity race and, watch you get 56th place so we can get 4th place instead of 5th place in the county. Go have fun, run some races, dominate some races, win some races, get second place in some races, but, kind of experience what it's like to be a freshman. Which I think was great, because by the end of freshman year, I was like, all right, I think I can do this. So they threw me in the sectional meet, and I wound up 8th, and everybody was like, where did this kid come from? Because all year, I was running these freshman races and nobody knew who we were. So from there, it was just like, all right, this is my thing. And, indoor track was great, outdoor track was great, but cross country was the thing. I would describe myself as a pretty good cross country runner and an above average track runner in high school. And then I would say in college, I was probably a pretty good cross country runner and then probably an average track runner.
College is a different animal. And, and we're both from the MAC, and the MAC isn't super well known, but in terms of XC, the MAC is pretty damn competitive. It's a good conference. So, Hyatt, I want to ask you a question, even though we have Eddie here. What was it like? So, Eddie was talking about how like big it was in South, and obviously you have so many kids coming out in South. So a coach like O'Leary has the luxury of letting his freshmen and sophomores kind of grow up, right? You were a South athlete. You coached over at South a little. Then you came over to Manchester. It's different at Manchester. We're smaller. We have to get points. We have to compete. And if there's a good freshman, there's a good sophomore, they're running the frost off races, but they're also running varsity and everything else. So with you, what was the difference there? Is it more, which one do you think kind of works a little bit better in a way? Like, is having the luxury of having 150 kids in South and being able to let your freshmen and sophomores grow up with other freshmen and sophomores better? Or is it better if you have the talented kid? And I know me as a freshman, I was, a 430 miler, so I was right up there. I was running varsity, everything. So in your eyes, what do you think would work? What works better?
Well, I mean, over at South, it wasn't that drastic. We didn't have these huge teams in terms of numbers. Like, I think maybe if we were lucky, we had two JV teams, but usually one.
Cross country was small. Yeah, we were in huge cross country.
Track was bigger. I don't know. I guess it depends on your team itself. Like when I was a freshman, we were trying to win the Ocean County Championship, and I had run varsity for some dual meets. I ran a few freshman Saturday races, but by the time counties came around, I was, I think, the first freshman to run in the varsity counties for O'Leary, and I ended up 16:55. I was like our third or fourth guy, and we ended up tying for first, but then losing by 1 second to Tom Reese on the 6-man tiebreaker. 1 place, 1 second. But had we not had a chance to win, I definitely would not have. I would have run the freshman race. So I think it totally depends on what the criteria is for that team for that year. Like when Eddie was a freshman, I don't think they were vying for the Ocean County Championship. I think that came like your sophomore, junior, senior year. So I always felt that O'Leary was really good at reading what each team needed at that time, and he would rather that all the freshmen run freshman races. But if you have this kid and you can win the counties, he's going to put you in there. But in terms of that in Manchester, I think, yeah, kind of the same. Like, it just what you need. Like when I was coaching, and I also wanted to thank Eddie for this. Like, I was really big on letting everyone run. So we had a couple meets at Manchester where Eddie would bring his JV guys when he was coaching over at South, and there were 2 other schools where we would just run the JV kids for a meet so that they could get the glory. So I don't know if it's that much different. Like, I don't know what it would be like when we had on Scott Baker from Southern or Chris Tefelsky from Westfield, where they had 89 guys on their cross country team.
Right.
So I can't really speak at it in that sense, because at South our cross country teams were not that big. I mean, we were good.
I think another thing that kind of depends is also very gender specific. I mean, not to but when you're a 14-year-old boy running cross country, you're a twig, you're 4'10", you're not developed, but you could also, if you're a 14-year-old girl, like that might be it for you. Like, that might be the peak of your athletic ability. So, at that point, you're a woman. You can compete against these other women, like, as opposed to when you're a 14-year-old boy, you're a boy competing against 18-year-old men.
Yeah. Huge difference.
It's a big difference.
Yeah,
certainly.
We'll see some of your best girl runners in the state, or you can be the freshmen. We've had freshmen win meet champs multiple times.
Yeah.
You don't see that on the boys side
it's always like if you get an 11th grader to crack into the top 10 in the cross country meet champs, you're like, wow, that kid's legit. If you look at the girls' results, it's three of each grade.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. I didn't think of it that way. So, Eddie, let's keep going down your journey. High school. You had success in high school. What do we got there?
Yeah, again, cross country was the kind of the thing. If we showed up to a meet, the goal was to win. And the goal at practice was to try to pull as many guys along with me. And sometimes that led to some confrontation. We were trying to make some guys better, and they were like, "Hey, we were told we're going to run slow today, and it is what it is. You're slow, my slow. I get it." But it led to those good relationships. I think a lot of the guys are still invested in running, which is great. And the team got better. We got some guys hopped on the train, and it worked out for them. They went on to do some great things in high school. But yeah, cross country, the goal was always to, if we were showing up to a Saturday meet, it was, all business. I was trying to win a race, and it didn't work out as much as I think everybody likes to allude to. There are a lot of silver medals in my mom's attic right now, but but that was it. If I'm gonna, again, with this sport and how individual it is, and how if I'm gonna go through, and I think that's the thing that, like, you could say, do you love running? Do you hate running? I liked competing. I went through all that because I liked competition. I liked racing. I liked, putting myself out there and trying to win. And that's why I did, I think, what I did for so long, because, sure, when you're getting hurt and, there's so many, when you get to college and everybody's good, there's so many things that can, turn you off to it. But when that gun went off, none of that mattered. It was just, all right, let's go out there and try to win a race. And it was really that simple. So yeah, some success, county title, state title. Just that was the goal. Just go out and try to, be the first guy across the line. And if it worked, great. And if it didn't work, again, I could probably, I was mad and wanted to figure out what we needed to do to fix it so it didn't happen again.
So, yeah, I mean, I think Eddie's best race from, there are two for me that saying that was, I think it was maybe his junior or senior XC when he won counties. He was way behind, came back, won. And then I think it was junior year MOC indoors when he was third at Princeton. That was from the second heat, right?
No.
That was first. Yeah, but he ran to run 9:27 at Princeton as a junior, that's rolling in the flats.
That's painful.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like these tracks now where, you throw out some spikes and, you're just ready to go. But I mean, he was a super tough kid, and, he's being a little way too modest, but that's just how he always was.
I mean, I get it, because the competitor in you, like, me and you, I guarantee there's people that would probably say we were pretty good runners, but we did a Meet the Host show talking about how bad we were. So, it's like, I get it. It's hard to kind of talk to yourself and kind of pat yourself on the back. So I understand, but I'm going to pat you on the back a little bit, Eddie, because you eventually went to Iona. We talked about it being a MAC school. I'm a Marist guy. We were in the same exact conference. Iona is the cream of the crop for cross country in MAC. It's not even a question. They were ranked second in the country for like 6 straight years. They would always pop in and go into nationals as like disrespected, like 6th ranked, 4th ranked, and then every time second, and still to this day go to nationals basically every single year. So you went to Iona. What was it like being a part of a program? Like, you went from South, which had high expectations, and now to Iona, which is now entering into national expectations. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, first off, like the first day we get on the in the van, and we go up to New Paltz, and I'm with you. I'm like, oh God, this is what am I getting? I'm sitting in the back seat, nervous, keeping my mouth shut. What am I getting myself into? Like, these guys are legit.
This guy's sub 4. This guy ran a 1:49 the other day. This one ran the 28-minute 10K. Like, legitimate guys, national caliber dudes.
Yeah, they were phenomenal. But as the conversation opened up, I was like, these guys are goofballs. They're clowns. Like, they're very laid back. So everything that I thought I needed to be in high school, to have that edge, to be serious, to, be all business at a meet, it kind of went out the window right off the bat. And first workout, Mick says to us, all right, you guys are going to do a 10-mile tempo run. And so we line up, at the New Paltz rail trail, and we're like, all right. So he's like, all right, you guys, 10 miles, 5:20 pace, B group, 10 miles, 5:40 pace. And then, so they go, and I'm still sitting there. He's like, all right, C group, Just do what you can do. I'm like, all right, this is there is I'm in the C group. There is no pressure. This is, let's see, let's go out. So, we did our first workout. It went pretty well. I did what they asked me to do all summer. Cause again, I was walking into it. I was like, this is going to be all business. But right off the bat in the first 2 weeks, I was like, no, the reason that this team is as good as it is because they just work hard and they don't let their nerves get in the way. They just go out and show their training when the gun goes off.
So hold on real quick. I just have to ask you, Dave, the difference, right? We heard Slattery last week, and Slattery kind of wasn't he talked about them being camaraderie and family, but he was like, they were all work. Like it was all work. And now we have, Eddie here from another pretty close to equally successful, like they're haven't had the national championships that Colorado has brought in, but still national caliber, really high level team. And we're hearing kind of a different coaching style, a different perspective of, and success breeds in so many different ways, right? Sorry to cut you off, Eddie, but I just needed to make that observation, right, Dave?
Well, I just think that it shows that, there's many different ways to coach. Like the way that Eddie and I were coached in high school probably wouldn't work as well with the modern athlete as it did then because the whole world's kind of changed. So there's definitely many different ways. And I think it's cool to hear all these different perspectives.
Yeah, I love it. I just had to make that observation because if you're a listener here and you listened last week, you will hear a contrast, which is great because two fantastic programs with the same exact goal in mind, especially while Eddie was there with, different styles. Sorry, Eddie, go ahead.
No, it's okay. But that's like, Mick was your typical fun loving Irish guy. So like that, like he established that culture where, this is what I want you to do. But it wasn't, this is what you have to do. This is the tools to be successful. You want to be successful. This is what you're going to do. But you don't have to turn that into, a job. It has to be a passion. It has to be something you love. So yeah. And right off, like in the first 3 weeks, everybody's kind of breaking down because, we're all, all fighting above our weight class to try to make a team. And, that was, within the first 2 days of being back on campus, he pulled us, the freshmen aside and said, hey, listen, there's 7 of you. None of you are going to make it if you don't back off. And, we're like, what do you mean back off? And he said, you can't run, you have to run your slow days by yourself. So you can't run with the Kenyans on your slow days. You can't you have to pick and choose your battles. And a bunch of guys, that went in one ear and out the other. Cause again, like they grew up like us, like me and Hyatt, where you have to work hard every day. That is the recipe for success.
The Kenyan slow day is 550 though. Like a mile. It's a different breed.
Oh, absolutely. And, so a couple of us listened and a couple of us didn't listen. So we go up to our first college meet in Boston. They bring the quote unquote B group. And I was one of the guys who was like, all right, well, he told us to take it easy on easy days, so I'm going to listen to him. It seems like, he knows what he's talking about. So we go up to Boston for my first race and I wind up being the number 1 guy on the team and like 11th place overall. Wow. And all of a sudden, all those guys who couldn't be bothered, oh, I have to work hard. You don't want to work hard? Well, then you're going to suffer. They all change their tune really quick. They all are like, oh, it worked for you. Let me try it. And, from there, like that's, I think at that point, I think Mick kind of looked at me and said, this guy might never make our team, but he's like, he's a guy that at least for our American guys, he'll his actions, if he continues to work the way we want him to work, we could get a couple of good guys out of this. So, and that's, I think one of the, from Iona a couple of years and then into LaSalle, like that was I'd say one of the better things that I did in college was, I learned how to listen to how I was feeling and, how I reacted to stuff. That way, the days that mattered were race days, and I had juice left in the tank on race days. I could perform well. So, I might have been in the B group for a workout, but then I was, finishing, fourth in some major invitational. And, they're like, wait, if you're in the B group, how come you're beating us all on race day? Because I'm not killing myself on race day. Now I'm training the way that you're supposed to train to get better.
So before we jump, because you said you went over to LaSalle after, right? Before we jump to there, what was that like at Iona with the culture of, you said the guys were goofballs. What was that kind of like being like, not many of us that went to college, we might have had a few, international athletes on the teams, but Iona was well known for having half the team, if not more, of international athletes. And, they're coming over because cream of the crop. What was that like? And the molding of having to obviously cultures are different as you're coming into there. And so what was that like jumping in and, coming from Jersey South, which didn't have that many different, cultures are different, but not the internationals.
Yeah. It was one of the best times of my life in terms of, just the relationships that I kind of forged from all these different cultures, from all these different people. The Irish guys were, they were funny, happy-go-lucky guys. The Kenyans, they were a little, they were a little soft spoken, but they were really the same way. They were, a bunch of goofballs. They were very easy to get along with. They're so polite. And it was interesting because you're saying, like South Jersey, there's a bunch of different, it was eye opening to me where, in Kenya, there's a bunch of different like socioeconomic statuses where, I was learning like, oh, this guy's rich because his family owns cattle. And I was like, that's the mark of wealth, and is you own your own cattle as opposed to you have to. I was like, oh, now, and one of my favorite stories ever is, we had these two guys come my junior year. They sign, they come over from Kenya, and we take them out to dinner the first night that they're in town, because we all lived in, 14 of us living in the quote unquote track house. So we take these guys out to dinner, and the one, Matthew, he's from an urban area, so he's very social. He was very right off the bat, we're talking. But the other one, he was from a very rural area, so he's just staring at his glass of water on the table. And finally, we're like, are you okay? And he goes, what is this? And we're like, oh, this is water. They give you a glass of water so you can, sip your water while you're making your menu choice. And he goes, no. And he points to the top of it and goes, this. And we're like, ice? And he said, yeah. What is ice? And I said, it's frozen water. It keeps your drink cold. So he had never... Wow. The first time it snowed, they were putting snow in Ziploc bags, and trying to put it in the freezer to save it for another. It was very, it was very fun to see, because it was kind of like watching somebody, watching a baby who's never, walked the walk for the first time. It was really neat. It was actually pretty cool to experience.
Kind of cool. We take for granted, right? Especially a lot of people hate oh, I got to get out of the Northeast. It's like, we have all 4 seasons. It is pretty cool. Again, I do want to go down south eventually because I'm done with the 4 seasons, but it is pretty cool. We get to experience all this stuff, and places in America and other parts of the world don't get to have just all these experiences. So that is pretty cool. You had that eye-opening experience. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we flew in when I was at LaSalle. We flew into race at Stanford for spring track, and we flew in and we landed in the same terminal as the University of Alaska, and the whole team was Kenyan. And I said, they got duped. They were told, hey, do you want to come to America? They didn't realize where in America they were going to.
So Eddie, you're at Iona. Did you graduate there and then go to LaSalle, or did you decide to transfer during
I graduated.
Thought so.
Yeah, I had a year of eligibility left. I actually wound up getting a stress fracture spring of my freshman year. Actually, it was plantar fasciitis. We did a pretty decent workout. I was in great shape. I'd say that was probably the best shape I was ever in my life, was freshman year of college. And I did a great workout, went back to the dorm, took a nap, took a step funny when I stepped out of bed, all of a sudden, like the tendon on the bottom of my foot flared up, and they were like, "Yeah, you're kind of done for the rest of the season." I was like, "Oh, that's good." So took a couple weeks off. Took care of that. Started running the mean streets of Pine Beach again, and wound up hitting a pothole funny. And they were, so all of a sudden, like, I get back on campus and I'm like, yeah, this has been bugging me for a couple of weeks. And they're like, oh, it's probably just tendonitis. Take 2 days off. And, because you're at a small school with, with limited resources, like what we had in terms of, ability, like we didn't have the resource, so we didn't have like our own training staff, like a Stanford would have, where it's like, oh, this is the cross country trainer. Like we were all fighting for, I see it. I see it, Alex. I see you understand what I'm saying.
Basketball, baseball, football, that you guys didn't have the football, but every other sport, soccer, ahead of all of us. It was like, oh, you need your leg massage? Intern. Who's one of your classmates? You're here for athletic training class. Give him a rub down. It's like, dude, I just got done running 10 miles. You asked me.
Yeah. So they kept they oh, it's tendonitis, take a few days off. So then finally they're like, maybe we should send you for an MRI. So they're like, yeah, you've got multiple stress fractures. I was like, okay, that sounds about right.
No.
So that was actually that actually wound up being probably the best thing that happened in terms of Iona. Was I wound up getting hurt, but again, the type of person that I grew up, you don't quit, and there were times where definitely sophomore year, I was like, yeah, this is it. I'm done. But I, showed up to practice every day. They were like, hey, jump in the pool, swim, go on the stationary bike. And I was like, all right, I'll play the game. And it was kind of because of that Mick, he sat me down at the end of my sophomore year and said, hey, listen, we're actually really happy that you stuck it out, because most people wouldn't have. So we know what you're getting academically. So would you rather us pay the rest of your tuition or pay for your housing? And I was like, this is, I'm glad I stuck it out now too, because that's awesome. That's fantastic. So, then junior year, senior year were great. Like I finally figured it out. Like I figured out how to, train the right way, do everything that you need to do. So, I got invited to go to nationals a couple times, made the plane ride out to Terre Haute, Indiana, which is always fun. And, wound up being the alternate both times, which kind of stunk because they don't tell you that when you get on the plane. They tell you that the night before. So you've got in your mind, like, all right, I got to get ready to run a national championship tomorrow. And then the wind kind of gets taken out of your sails. And one of the things like that I think a lot of the coaches that I've had would compliment me on was my ability to be consistent. So I don't think there was ever a race that I ran at Iona where I didn't score points for the team. I finished maybe 24th in the region that year, but wow. They were kind of, oh man, that might not get us. So they, pulled a kid from Ireland out of his red shirt and they said, listen, we're going to run him. And I was like, I understand. And he wound up running great, but the two other, there were two other X factors that wound up not running so well. So we're on the plane ride home and Mick, was apologizing. And I'm like, it's not your fault. Like you had like, and
it was a strategy. It was a strategy play. Yeah.
And after 15 years of coaching, like I get it. Like you have to make, like, that's your job as a coach, is to make decisions. Yep. And I didn't even do it at that level. I did it at a no-name level. But so he said, hey, what's it going to do to get you to come back here next year? And I was like, no, I'm going to see what's out there. So he understood. He was like, yeah, just let me know what you need. I'll make some phone calls for you. And it was funny because we were sitting right next to Matt Centrowood Sr. And yep. he kind of gives me a nudge on the shoulder and goes, I coached at American. If you're looking to, find somewhere else to go. So,
a great school.
Yeah, it was. So, did a little shopping. LaSalle was the best option. Charles Torpy, he was still there. He was he was a legend. And I was the same age as Sean Quigley and all those guys. So like I walked on and they were like, hey, we need a guy to like lead the cross country team. These guys are out of eligibility. So we need you to, you got 1 year left. You got to lead the squad. So
nice. It's one of the, LaSalle's one of the best, especially middle distance crews. They are fantastic, especially in middle distance. I remember I looked at LaSalle and I was thinking, and then I looked at some of their stuff and I'm like, I'm not going to run there. Like, I'm not going to be able to compete at LaSalle. Like, they're really good. So that's pretty awesome. So let's dive into coaching, because now you're done with college. You do LaSalle. Now you come back. Did you want to coach right away? Is that something you want to do?
No.
That's kind of the answer that we get from a
few of them have been like, I didn't want to do
that. Pure dumb luck. I mean, truth be told, I was I got my teaching certificate in New York State. I did all that stuff at Iona, and so I graduated. I was like, all right, I need to find a master's program. But I was like, what do you need a master's in education for? So I actually went to LaSalle and got an MBA. And while I was there, it was 2008 and the housing market collapsed and finance was dead. So I was like, well, that's a useless degree now. So I was actually already subbing at South, like on and off, like, for, winter breaks and stuff. So I was, it was a 2-year grad program. I only had 1 year eligibility. So I didn't, I was back in Toms River. I worked out my schedule at LaSalle where I only had to go into Philly 2 days a week. So I was, subbing the other 3 days a week. And then I was just kind of hopping in practices just to keep running. So I wasn't really even, I was the assistant coach, but I wasn't really, I was just there because I wanted to get a workout in.
Yeah, stay in shape.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then I was just, those guys were more much, they were a little younger, but every so often, the Hyatts would show up and, we'd talk shop and, it was a good time. But at that point, Jim Greer was, he was the girls coach.
Yep, for many years.
And he kind of walked over and he was like, "You're here a lot." I was like, I am, And he goes, do you want to coach? And I was what do you have in mind? He goes, "Yeah, I need an assistant for winter." I was like, all right, I can do that. So he's like, yeah. I was like, the problem is I still have to go into Philly, 2 days a week I can handle 2 days a week. He goes, "I'm only going to give you the distance girls." I'm like, all right, sounds good. I can do that. So there were 6 girls on there. There were 6 distance girls on the winter track team. There were only 20 girls on the winter track team. And it was, they had actually, they had another coach. They let him go, or he wound up getting the boys' job at North. So they gave Mr. Greer the job back, but he kind of didn't want it. So he never let on with that. So he kind of was like, all right, yeah, we'll do this. So then spring track rolls around. And he goes, all right, you're the head coach now. And that was it.
That was a transition.
Spring of 2009. He goes, yeah, I'm done. You're the coach. I was like, I'm still in grad school. I still have classes 2 days a week. He's like, yeah, I'll still show up 2 days a week, but he goes, I'm done. You're the coach. And that's how I became the track coach at Toms River South.
He was a great guy, man. Yeah. I ran with his son Chris, and they were just an awesome family. So,
but you can believe that story, Hyatt, because that's exactly how nonchalant he was. Like,
oh yeah. He was just the most chilled.
This is yours now.
So you're at South, and I was coaching at Manchester girls while you were at South, and let me tell you, those South girls, those distance girls, they were just every year. Eddie just kept pumping out these girls that were just like 5 flat. 505, 5. It was amazing. Like the job that you did at that school, because I always watched whatever South did because I graduated from there, and it's like we're like this family. Like when our coach retired, we had a party and there was probably like 350 people there. We did this big thing. So like we're all this big huge close family. But like, what was it like to be coaching at your alma mater and to have such great success? That had to be just a wonderful feeling.
Oh, it was great. I mean, the girls team, when I was in high school was great. They won the sectional cross country championship. They, they had legit girls, but they were also limited by the fact that indoor track back then was at Red Bank. So I think there were girls that were.
We talk about Red Bank all the time on this podcast. We hate that place.
Well, no, but Eddie never ran there.
Yeah, I don't even know.
I told you, my freshman year we got in a fight with High School East, and I only ran there twice. And our coach was like, "F this, we're not going back," and he never went back there once.
Eddie, you didn't miss anything. You didn't miss anything, Eddie.
Yeah, a couple lack of county titles. Oh wow. Yeah. Oh, but
yeah.
I mean, it was great because again, O'Leary did a great job with the boys, but Greer did such a good job with the girls that it wasn't. I didn't think what we were doing for the last 10 years was anything special. I just thought we were trying to continue on, and there were a couple down years right before I got there, and I think that's what everybody kind of remembered, but I remembered them before that when they were, the South girls were legit. They were,
oh yeah.
And it was great to bring that back. That was, it was great for everybody to see that the boys teams always, they're always in the mix. They're always winning short conferences, vying for state sectionals, but the girls are legit too. And the other, what you're saying with the mid distance, I for some reason, Ocean County is a hotbed for 400, 800 runners.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't think what we were doing was, anything special other than realizing hey, that girl can do that. And, just kind of guiding them in the right direction. Maybe again, freshman year doing the O'Leary where, a girl would say, oh yeah, I think I'm a 100, 200 runner, then, let her get 15th in the, freshman county and say, hey, we got an extra spot in the 800. And then she wins it. And she goes, why didn't you tell me I could do this? Because, you got to kind of figure that out yourself.
One of my favorite things as an opposing coach was watching Eddie's girls and Geiger's girl, Levitt, that just knowing that two guys that went to my high school have the two best girls in Ocean County short conference and on a state level. It was just so cool to watch, to see all these people from my old high school coaching, doing their thing. It was just awesome. It was so much fun. But there was one thing that I never understood about your time at South. And I don't know if you want to talk about it or not. How the hell were you never the cross country coach? I never understood that. It made no sense. You had such great success with all those same girls running distance. I was like, how is Eddie not coaching all 3 seasons? It baffled my mind for the longest time.
I mean, long story short, it was kind of just how Tom's River operated, where they, once they gave a person a position, as long as they weren't making any waves, they weren't going to take that position away.
I guess,
And it kind of actually did coach there for one year before I got my the job at the school I'm at now, where it kind of worked out where the boys coach got let go or just decided not to come back, and they're like, oh, we got to find a new boys head coach. Do you want to be the boys cross country coach? And I was like, well, no, what I really want to be is the girls cross country coach so I can build a program. So is there any way you can take the girls coach and move them to the boys? And they were like, oh yeah, we could do that. We didn't know that you wanted the cross country job. I was like, I think you're the only, if you're saying you didn't think I know, you're the only person in the free world that didn't know that I wanted that job.
But it did kind of work out because you decided to transition and become the head cross country coach at Ocean County College, which I thought was really, really cool. Because you hadn't really, I wasn't even sure that OCC even had a cross country team, for the longest time, but you went there and you guys had such great success at the program. What was that like taking all these kids from Ocean County, from all these different schools and bringing them and competing on the national level for junior college?
it was, I mean, that was kind of I think that was the one where I realized that like that coach, I grew up and I was like, yeah, I'm an okay runner, but I was like, I like this coaching more than I ever liked running. Yeah, like taking those kids taking those kids at OCC, first of all, getting that job, because I walked in for the interview and they're like, all right, we're bringing back this program from the 70s. Like this is, you're going to be the keys to, like, we're giving you the keys to the van and this is yours. And, they were like, so, what sets you apart? I'm like, I was like, well, you guys got some talent walking around campus. I've seen a couple, kids that are, I've seen the people that, because they, had a sign up list. So I walked by, I looked at the sign up list and I was like, oh, I recognize those names. So, I did my homework and I said, with the names I see on that list, you guys are going to be vying for national championships. And that was all they needed to hear was, oh, you think that we can take this and turn it into something. And yeah, right off the bat, we got a good group of guys and girls in those first couple of years. And they didn't treat it like they were at a junior college, which was fantastic. And I hope that was partially, due to the culture that I was trying to establish. But I think it was just, I had the right group of kids. And then success breeded success, where by the time we were 4 years in, like, everybody knew the expectations. We know that we're working, we're taking 12 credits of classes and we're working a part-time job, but, from 2:30 to 4:30, we're on campus and we're working together. Which, I've talked to other junior college and they're like, you have practice every day? I'm like, yeah, don't you? And they're like, no, we have these kids working 2 jobs, and like, how do you get around that? I'm like, well, if a kid had to miss every now and then for, because they had work, I just said, all right, you know what you need to do. We trust that. And like, just letting the kids know, like, listen, we trust you. We know you're going to get your stuff done. The kids were great. We had the right group. They were responsible. They were mature, and they wound up. We had a lot of success in those first couple of years.
So, did you find that a lot of the kids that you got initially were kids that were good in the county, in the conference, in the state, and just didn't go to other schools, and they had chips on their shoulders? Like, I might not be at the level of the D1 I wanted to be, but man, I'm going to be something special here, type of deal. And is that why they wanted to buy in? Like, what made that group of kids so successful?
With the guys, that's 100% what it was. We had some kids who were, sub 2 kids, sub 440 kids, which at the JUCO level is you're a stud.
Yeah.
When I would quote unquote recruit, at the county championship, I wouldn't even, I knew after my first year, I was like, I'm not even walking up to anybody who finishes in the top 10, because they're not going to give me the time of day. Like, I was like, all right, that girl's 18th in the varsity race. She might come talk to me. Were you
giving money at all at the?
No.
I didn't know. I don't know what the parameters were.
We were D3 junior college, so we had to follow.
It's actually good because like you had kids who wanted to be there, and there wasn't that pressure of a scholarship.
1,000%.
Who just loved the sport, and they didn't want to stop doing it.
Yeah, and that was
it was a great opportunity for them.
And I'd say that was the success with the boys was the chip on the shoulder. The girls, it was actually the opposite. Because in New Jersey, if you finish in the top 15% of your graduating class, you qualify for what's called the NJ Stars program. Mm-hmm. You get your first 2 years at a junior college for free.
Yeah.
So the girls were actually looking at it the other way, where, hey, I'm going here for free. And now I can kind of build my resume a little bit and join the cross country team and make myself more marketable for those last 2 years. So, it was 2 different types of kid, actually, guy versus girl, where, it was, and it was funny how it worked out, but it created a nice balance where, the girls were the kind of, the responsible ones. I could like say, all right, this is what we're doing today. And like, they could keep tabs on the boys for me. And it was great.
Go ahead, Dave.
Were you obviously during that time, would you talk to other coaches, say, hey, like, which kids do you think that are on your program now, would want to go to OCC and would want to compete there? Was that like any conversation that you had with other coaches in Usher County?
I tried, and it really depended on, the relationship, I guess, because I coached at the high school, the relationship I had with you from coaching at the high school. And then really the relationship that you have with the sport and your athletes. And it really kind of came down to pride. I had a lot of coaches who, well, not a lot of coaches, but I had a few coaches. I would come up and say, "Hey, you see those two girls? I think I have a opportunity for them to run for a couple more years." And the coaches would say, "Well, we like to send our kids to 4-year schools." And I'm like, "Well, that's kind of silly because they probably can't run at a 4-year school. Well, not competitively, they can run, but so it's kind of a shame for you to deny them that opportunity without letting me talk to them first, right? Because that might be the perfect fit for them. So why as a coach would you say, no, that's not for them? Like, let them make that decision."
Absolutely.
Did you have a lot of your athletes from OCC go on in their next 2 years and go and compete at the schools that they went to? Or did a lot of them kind of leave it at OCC, enjoy their time, and just focus on academics at the next, school they chose?
About 50-50, actually.
Pretty good.
A couple, Jen Nelson wound up going to Monmouth and wound up running sub 17 in the 5K, qualified for the NCAA regional round.
Yeah, Jen was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, she was legit. A couple girls went to TC&J, wound up, walking onto that team. A couple guys went down to Charleston. They were starting up a cross country similar to what we were doing. Like they were like, "Hey, we're starting first year program." I was like, "Perfect. We know all about that." So yeah. These are the guys that'll help you do that. So yeah, there were a lot of, and that was the other thing I think that was great about junior college was, some of the schools that we wound up sending kids to were schools that they had never even heard of before. But just because, we would show up to a meet and, there's no junior college invitationals on a Saturday. Right. So I was like, all right, well, let's go down to Wilmington, Delaware, because they have a bunch of D2 and 3 schools at the NCAA level that we can kind of compete with. So we would show up, and by the time we were leaving, they were like, "Hey, can I talk to that kid before you leave?" And that's kind of how they were like, I didn't even know that was until we got here, I didn't know that was a school. And now they're offering me an opportunity to run for them next year.
That's really cool. And it has to be like gratifying for you as a coach that, especially as a JUCO coach, I'd imagine that kind of the goal is to get these athletes noticed by the other 4 years with, what they want to do academically and things like that. So that had to kind of well you up with pride, not only to watch them be successful, but to also kind of help potentially set them up for their next phase of their life. That had to feel awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and the best part was like how it could be so eclectic. Like it gave kids who really didn't have a chance of running in college, but really loved the sport, 2 more years of being part of something, being part of a team, getting that kind of making a transition to college easier. But it also, it did create opportunities like that for some kids, which was awesome.
That's really cool.
So you're coaching there in the fall, and you're back at South winter and spring. And then, you do what all of us do. You get married, you have a family. So what came into the decision that you kind of wanted to move and change schools, and kind of how your coaching career has gone since that transition?
Little League, man. No, it was really, I got married in 2012. We had our first kid in 2016. We had a little girl during the pandemic. And it really came... It really came down to, around 2017, 2018. I was like, my kid's getting to the age where he's going to start doing things, doing sports, and I don't want to miss that. And it was an easy decision, and it just, again, opportunity presented itself. I saw that Sterling had an opening for a math position, and I've actually been living in Cherry Hill the entire time I was coaching in Toms River. Wow. So my wife works in Philadelphia, so we yeah, I went and applied, and by the time I got home, which it was like a 2 mile drive home, the superintendent called and said, "Hey, yeah, we want you to take the job." Um, which was awesome. It was I mean, the most heartbreaking thing was having to go back to Tom's River and say, "Hey guys, listen, I'm not coming back next year." But they understood. All the coaches I worked with, all the kids I worked with, they all understood. And I left the program with the same guys and they're phenomenal. We through trial and error, we found a coaching staff that they all brought something unique, all knowledgeable in the sport, but all brought something unique in terms of the way that they could interact with the kids. So I wasn't worried. And South's been super successful since I left, which is great. So yeah, I took this job at Sterling, and the first thing they said was, well, we don't have any high school jobs open, but we do have a middle school program. So I was like, yeah, I can, again, that's for me, that's maybe even better because, the whole goal maybe with coaching the whole time was to keep kids involved and and interacting in the sport and enjoying the sport. And, if we had success, that was icing on the cake.
I loved coaching middle school.
Yeah, it was fun.
After my second daughter, like I stopped coaching high school and I went back to the middle school because I was teaching there, and it was fun, because I had a positive relationship with the high school coach, so it was cool just to kind of like, I knew what his expectations were at that next level, so it was just fun, like getting kids into it and teaching them things that they've never done, like even like certain how to go over a hurdle, how to like some of these kids when you get them in sixth grade, they have no idea. They're showing up in jeans and high tops, and like just to kind of like, it was cool that the high school coach also loved it too, because he had someone down there who actually knew what the hell that they were actually doing, because a lot of middle school coaches have zero clue. I remember going to meets where they didn't even know how to score a cross country meet. They're like, I don't know. I'm like,
well, it did backfire pretty quick because we ran the middle school practice like on the opposite side of the high school practice while it was happening. So the high school coach, we worked close enough that he kind of right off the bat was like, "Hey, you know what you're doing." I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay at this." So I volunteered for winter, and he's like, "Can you work with the distance kids?" I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." And then he's like, "Can you coach the high jump?" I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." And, so basically, once he was like, "Wait, you can do whatever I ask you to do," I was like, "Just let me know what you need me to do, and we'll do it." So by the end of winter, they were like, "All right, we're going to hire you as the assistant spring coach and then the head cross country coach for the high school team." I was like, well, that escalated quickly. But yeah, then I said, "Listen, guys, that's great. I'm flattered. But again, next year starts kindergarten, and you're kind of getting me on borrowed time because that's going to be priority number one, is picking up my kids from school, which has actually been almost a blessing because now I'm on as a volunteer at the school. I show up, if they say, "Hey, we have these 3 kids that are high jumpers. They're great, but like we just got so much going on. Can you work with them one day a week?" So I can pick the day, show up, work with them for an hour, let my kids run around the track, mess around a little bit. Watch my son, he's 6, try to go over hurdles. So it's awesome, and it's stress-free, and it's great.
Are there any plans on eventually jumping back into full-blown coaching? If when your kids get older and you're an old man, do you plan on going back and being the old grumpy guy?
I am an old man. I'm already there. I actually don't know what's next. I talk to the coaches every day. We talk shop. If an opportunity at the school, happens, and that happens when my family can, where we can swing it, then yeah, 100%. But then the other end of that is, I keep tossing around the idea of becoming an official, because I was like, that's just as beneficial to the kids. And, same story. I can kind of provide a little more flexibility for myself, but still be involved and, and help kids develop.
So I do want to talk about the officials and all the other things, but we actually are going to have to wrap this up. Eddie, I want to have you back on, because I don't think, we're going for about an hour and change now. That's usually where we like to keep it. Eddie, we are going to reschedule today for your next show to come up, because we have so much more to talk about with you.
Yeah,
and I hate to cut it off, but I loved hearing about your story. I loved hearing about your coaching. It was so much fun, but we're not Joe Rogan. We can't do 3-hour podcasts. I make that joke, and I would love to. I would love to get to the level where we could just sit here, without the weed, and just go and talk for like 8 hours.
The Rogan style.
Unfortunately, we are going to have to stop this one. Eddie, I really appreciate you coming on, man.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Dave, any last words?
Nah, I'm like, I've known Eddie for a long time, and he was one of my favorite kids that I ever got to coach, and to be around, just his drive, and I think what was overlooked too was he was you could tell when he was in high school that he would definitely transition into being a coach if that was something that he aspired to do. He just has this way of being a leader, and just he's a great guy, and I'm so happy for him and his family, and I hope that the Giants kick his Eagles' ass on Saturday night, but I don't see it happening. But Eddie, thank you for coming on. You were one of the names when this all started that I told Alex that I would love to have on, because I just think you have a great story, and it's still ongoing, and I hope that whatever you decide to do in the future, you just have joy and success, and thank you.
Yeah. And Eddie, I'm sorry to cut you off there. I hated stopping the show, but
I get it.
Everyone stay tuned. There will be a part 2, because I guarantee that, because we have a lot more to talk about. Eddie, is there anything that you want to plug, anything you want to talk about, that you want to give light to at all before we jump off?
I think we touched a lot of bases. I guess the two things that I had kind of coming into this were, if you do love the sport, and you do have don't have the time in the world to give back in terms of coaching, they're always looking for officials. They're looking for officials everywhere. They just started the classes at the new year. I think it's 6 classes, and then as soon as you take the test, you can jump in and start officiating. So if you like going to meets and watching events, and you want to help kids develop, show them what track is, and you have a little bit of time to do it, I think that's a great opportunity for people. And then the other one was the junior colleges. Don't shun opportunities. Not everybody can run at Stanford, but everybody can run in college. If you love it, there's for every buyer there's a seller. You can go out and do what you love for a couple more years in the camaraderie, in the type of relationship that you like to have with it. There's opportunities everywhere. So make sure that you search them all out before you make your decisions.
I love it. Again.
Absolutely.
He's Eddie Baines, former Toms River South athlete, ran over at Iona, graduate LaSalle, really talented runner, and also, as you heard, a very successful coach at a few places in New Jersey there. Loved having you on. If you liked what you heard, give us a like, share, follow, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials. We will be back next week as always. Don't forget, send us your PRs, everybody. See you guys later.